to a Q&A for City of Wind. With me is the director of the film, Lkhagvadulam Purev-Ochir, or with a nickname which would be a little bit shorter to pronounce, Dulma. Welcome, Dulma. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
In this year's festival motto, Nothing But Life, we want to rediscover new philosophies or lost philosophies of knowledge and explore different ways of looking at the world that are not shaped by a Eurocentric way of thinking, not shaped around the human as the center of the universe, which everything revolves around the human. And City of Wind excited us a lot because it combines traditions and modern life in a big city. And to start with a quite personal thing, I always found Mongolia a very special country, because it's you get the thinking of the idea of a country that is squeezed between two great powers, China and Russia, and a lot of people think, well, Mongolia, it's empty, it's like nothing. And in fact, I think 99% of the people live in Ulaanbaatar, in the capital. And when I was watching the movie and I saw those exciting landscapes of Mongolia on the one side and this modern city of Ulaanbaatar, which is quite big in international comparison even, on the other side, it was really, really modern. And I thought, well, maybe the film is about exactly this theme, about combining a traditional life with a modern life. It's some kind of Mongolian thing, maybe. So, how would you describe the modern Mongolia, and how would you describe modern Mongolia according to your movie you made?
Okay, that was a lot.
I'm sorry.
No, it's very nice that you described your festival in that way. I do think then, I mean, our film is quite perfect for for the thematic of the festival. I mean, especially in terms of this philosophy that you spoke of. That's exactly, I think, what the film wants to express is, I think, a way of life, and not necessarily a religious practice or religion in general. It was very important to me that shamanism wasn't approached from a religious perspective. I don't think we can even call it a religion. I think it's more a way of life, as I said. I think it's a way of perceiving the universe. It's a philosophy. So I tried to basically approach it from a very practical day-to-day life, and not look into it in a very fantastic way, or I mean, the question of spirituality and what does it mean and how does it manifest in modern day life, and all these things. And for me, it was, I think, a journey for me also, just to try to understand how to make this film. Because at the beginning, it was very evident that I didn't want to do something magic realistic. I didn't want to talk about fantastical things or show fantastical things. And just be very honest in my portrayal and talk about the spirituality, shamanism, a way of life, philosophy, whatever we want to call it, based on my experiences. I can only talk about it in the way that I know it. And so I tried not to fictionalize in my depiction of it. So because I personally attend shamanic ceremonies, I just asked myself, what is it to me? And I will show that. And I thought that precisely that it was very intimate affair. And I think the question of intimacy became the building block for the philosophy of the film in a way. Because
sorry.
No, go ahead.
You said you wanted to show it like you experienced it yourself, and this connects to my next question. The main character in his role as a shaman, deals with, well, worries, problems, illnesses of all the people that come to him. And is this kind of a common role in Mongolia for young people, for young men? Is this a custom, or is it, well, just people like say who choose to do this?
Yes, I would say it's common. It's it's not rare, but if you don't attend the rituals, then probably if you're not looking for them, then probably you wouldn't really know about shamanism. Because modern day Mongolia, it's very it's quite rich in that aspect. You can be a modern day Mongolian who never attends shamanic ceremonies, and therefore you never meet shamans, and you don't care about them, you don't know about them, and you live your life without them, But in my experience, I do go to my family. We go to one particular one, the shaman who inspired this film. We do go to him, and it was very funny that the first time that I did go attend a ritual with this particular shaman that I'm talking about, around that time I was also teaching at the university, and I had two students, I think, in my class who got permission to not attend my classes because they were shamans and they had to do certain obligations or rituals and they couldn't attend class. And I'm talking about first year freshman students, so they were 18, 19. And right around this time, I met the shaman that I go to now, who's obviously now in his mid-20s and is the father of two kids. But back then, he was also 19, 20 when I first met him. So it just came to happen that at that time in my life, I ran into a lot of young shamans. And when in the course of making this film also, really easy to find young shamans who can advise and assist us. For example, Tergel, the lead actor who plays the shaman, he needed some help with the drumming because it's actually quite specific instrument and it's super heavy and it's hard to handle unless you have practice with it. And I didn't have to look far. I mean, there was a casting assistant whose best friend was a shaman, and he also happened to be an actor who graduated in Russia. So he was like, I think he was 25 years old, and so I didn't have to search far and wide at all. I just said we need someone to help us with the drumming and the ritual aspects of the film, and immediately we found one. So that's why I say it's not rare, but it's not also common if you're not looking for them,
I see, I see. So, but they are not only like young shamans, there are also older men who are doing this kind of custom.
Older men and women, yes.
And women. Okay,
Yes.
that's very interesting. So you said you met a lot of young shamans through this time. C is 17 years old. And on the one hand, as this shaman who cares about or deals with the problems and illnesses of like, yeah, all the people that are coming to him, he has kind of a big authority. And on the other hand, he's a 17-year-old schoolboy going to school and having to deal with quite an authoritarian teacher himself. And for us, while watching the movie, it was like, yeah, kind of like a separate role he gets into when he gets to those, shaman rituals. But for a young boy like him, is it even possible to separate the schoolboy say and the shaman say, or is it like one personality through the time?
You're talking about in the film or in general? Generally speaking, young
Both,
shamans.
both.
During the rituals, there is an ancestral spirit that enters his body. So technically speaking, his spirit, he himself is not present during the rituals. So there is that separation in terms of the actual rituals. So what you see in the rituals is the ancient spirit. It's not him. But once the ritual is ended, he is a 17-year-old kid. And of course, what I want to show in the film, but also in real life when I'm doing research and talking to shamans, is that because you have the sensitivity, it's almost like having a sixth sense. You're sensitive to more than what we normally would be sensitive to, and therefore it can be very overwhelming. And that's kind of the main driving force of the film that I hope that the audience would experience, because this kind of question of, you know, the separation between the modern 17-year-old Zay and, you know, this ancestral spirit shaman Zay, I didn't want to portray it as a conflict. I didn't want to show that these two things are completely two separate things that cannot exist in the same space or in the same body. The film is not about modernity conflicting with tradition or spirituality at all. What I hoped to achieve was to completely forget about conflict and portraying modern Mongolia as within these conflicting forces, and really just think about how it would feel for him and how it felt for me as a modern Mongolian in my 20s. And I can say it's one word, it's feeling overwhelmed, like my senses feeling overwhelmed. And when I first met the shaman that inspired this film, I couldn't imagine that there was this 19, 20-year-old kid who was, I mean, going to university. He was a freshman in university when I met him first. And he at the same time was, you know, taking care of, or his ancestor was taking care of such deep troubles between people. Because when you go to a shaman, you're not going to talk about lighthearted things. You are going because you have a true crisis in your life, and you cannot find comfort anywhere else, and that's why you would turn to a shaman. And so just the responsibility of carrying this role, and just the fact that you're just that your senses are functioning on another level, it can be overwhelming. And I just try to build up the emotions in the main character, and hope that towards the end of the film the audience would get a taste of how it would feel to be a 17-year-old shaman, a 17-year-old Mongolian in today's world. And yeah, what I'm trying to say is it's possible. It's possible not because we're trying to make it possible. It's possible because it just is. And I don't question myself as a modern day Mongolian and my beliefs, and you know, whether I don't know. I feel like, yes, it can be overwhelming sometimes, but I don't think of it as like a identity crisis, or, you know, like a spiritual crisis. That's also the other thing I didn't want to say, is to say that he had a spiritual crisis at the end of the film. He doesn't have a spiritual crisis. He has a crisis of himself. He loses faith in himself. I don't think he ever loses faith in his shaman. Because I just didn't want to kind of like put him into these two different roles or identities, and, you know, have them clash with each other. I think that's really not the point of the film, or not how I want to portray the character or characterize Mongolia in general. Did I answer your question? I kind of rambled.
I see it totally. It's well, I guess I thought when we saw him going partying with Marala, the girl, and falling in love with him, uh, it's some kind of a thing every 70-year-old young schoolboy, schoolgirl experiences. I experienced it. I'm not doing any shamanism or anything else.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite a common thing, and I think it's portrayed quite good in the movie. That it's possible, but there are different sides, of course. But it's not this clash as you called it. So yeah, thank you. I think the movie lives about this interaction between Se and Marala, and about how they interact with each other. And I was interested in how much of this was planned by you of interaction, or other said otherwise, how much did the film attributed to improvisation? How much did the actors of the two roles contribute to the roles they played after all? And is there also some kind of a, well, like documentary element in the film?
I would say all of the scenes were written in the script. The only thing that was more improvisation than script is actually my favorite scene, and it's the scene on the bridge when they're drawing each other. And I mean, that scene, I had given the prompt in a way. They knew that, you know, they were coming down from, well, actually not coming down, but they knew that they were on a date, and that they're supposed to kind of tease each other about how they see each other, or kind of tease each other about their dreams and their future selves. And so that was kind of given, but obviously what they drew, I mean, we talked about it beforehand, but still, that those drawings that came out of them and our discussions about who they are, you know, Marla wanting to live in the countryside and Zay wanting to move to an apartment, and um, we had discussed them, but we didn't really plan out these scenes. And also, it was so cold that morning because we were trying to shoot sundown, but we shot it at 6 a.m. when it was so cold. It was like minus 38, almost 40 degrees. And so, like, we needed to shoot that as quick as possible and get out to save people's lives, because it's impossible to be filming outside that morning. So it was like a very quick, more improv than, you know, like specifically planned shots and things like that. And that ended up being my favorite scene. Not because of the fact that it's improv, but it just moves me that, you know, these two kids who have completely different ideas for their futures, who come from different backgrounds, who have different ideas about shamanism and spirituality and all these things, but they're still able to kind of tease each other and love each other and get in a relationship with each other. And that's also the main message of the film, is that, you know, modern day Mongolians, we are diverse in what we believe in and how what our dreams are for the future and our backgrounds. But we yeah, this is it. We are still able to respect each other and love each other and you know, tease each other, and this is completely normal. And this is kind of what I wanted to say with the film. And again, like this idea of like, oh, okay, let's make a film about you know, spirituality versus love, which one do you choose? You know, it's not about that at all. And so I kind of, because at the beginning of the film, because Marla is so expressive about her approach or her ideas about shamanism, I think there's this sense, or at least this question or expectation, that the film is going to be about that. But this scene on the bridge is what completely destroys this expectation from the film. And it happens exactly midpoint of the film. And I like that this scene is next to another scene, where Marla is questioning shamanism. She says, what is the point of, you know, your great 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 grandfather descending down? Like, you know, what's the point? And I tried in my own way to kind of respond to this question for the second half of the film. So like the first half of the film is more or less, okay, is this relationship going to work? Are they going to fall in love? Yes, 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 it's going to work. They're going to fall in love. Da da da. They don't have a problem with, you know, him being a shaman and she not liking it, etc. That's not what this film is about. This film is really about, what is the point of spirituality? What is the point of shamanism in modern day Mongolia? And I try to, in my way, answer this question with the film, with the second half of the film specifically.
You said,
and I feel, again, I babbled and I feel like maybe I didn't answer your question. Yeah, improv. Yes.
you answered my question, and it's absolutely interesting what you're saying about Well, the movie making process also, like it was so cold and you have to save lives, and yeah, that's really interesting, and that leads me to my next and also last question about yeah difficulties during the process of filming, or more generally ask, Mongolian cinema isn't yet really widespread around the world. I hope City of Wind will change this. But you traveled a lot around the world. You had to deal with filmmaking, I guess, in Turkey and in Portugal. And what
Mm-hmm.
do you think is needed uh, for Mongolian cinema to be more recognized on a like global stage? And what are the difficulties that you yourself discovered, and you say in general difficulties for Mongolian cinema to be recognized globally?
I think for Mongolian cinema to be recognized globally, we just I mean, it's such a multifaceted question because it's not one thing, you know, it's so many things. It's education, first of all, for young people, young filmmakers. And you know, having taught in university, I know like the one thing that I would not suggest is, for example, 30, 40 directors every year graduating. I was teaching 30, 40 directing kids in 1 year, and sometimes I would combine the directing students and the cinematography students, and so it's like 120 kids, for example, in the lecture hall. I think it it needs to be quality over quantity when it comes to education in Mongolia. But that's a local problem. It's more on a global level. I think it's really support. What's happening right now is actually very important. One of which is that, you know, Mongolia has now a film council. It has a film fund recently that City of Wind we received funding from. It was it was the first round of applications that we applied for and received funding from Mongolian Film Council. Thank you. So that's obviously going to help push the film for more co-productions. Because before it was like, okay, Mongolian film, but where's the money, you know, from Mongolia? There was none. But now we have some. We're starting to create co-production agreements with specific, also especially European countries. This helps a lot. The film productions on a legal level, you know. Locarno Open Doors did a 3-year focus on Mongolia a couple of years back, um, and just you guys, you know, picking our film to be part of your festival like this. This is huge. This is helping people be more aware of just different perspectives, different ways of living, different experiences, and this is going to help us become more global, because before Mongolian cinema was for Mongolian people, and we made films with extremely tiny budgets that we were able to put out to the Mongolian audience and maybe get that money back, you know, from theater revenue, maybe. And again, with a 3 million population, you know, million and a half people living in Ulaanbaatar, most of you, it's very tiny industry. And just having more eyeballs, like people at Transit Film Festival, right? It's going to help just more people wanting to make co-productions with Mongolia, more people wanting to fund films from Mongolia, more people becoming curious. Yeah, it's a lot of different things. I don't know if I can say just one specific thing.
I want to say thank you for the interview and also for this great movie. It really impressed us a lot. Not only because it's a Mongolian movie, but it's a perfect film.
Thank
Even
you.
outside
Thank you
of
for
this.
having me,
Yeah,
especially with this ethos and with this yeah, I really feel like it's a perfect fit. So thank you.
Yeah, we are really happy to be able to show your work to our audience. Is there anything else you want to say to our audience?
Hmm. My goodness. No, I think it's just I think the film also I hope is like a meditative experience, so just kind of relax into it.
Yeah,
I
I
would
hope
say, and
a lot of people will enjoy your
yeah,
work
and
at our
throw away your expectations, right?
yeah
About not only about Mongolia, but also just about what a how a film should be, or what a romance should be, or what is spirituality versus modernity, and all these kind of um set set ideas that we have about countries. And yeah,
yeah yeah. Thank you a lot for the movie. Thank you a lot for the
thank you.